Let's go, baby. Andrew Cooper here, aka Coop A Fiasco. This is Coop's Fantasy Football Fiasco. I'm with Fantasy Alarm. This is on Better Network. We're sponsored by FFPC. You guys know the deal by now. Thank you so much for tuning in. Michelle, I see your question in the chat. I see you guys trickling in. Today, I was going to just go through week one rankings, but I thought to myself, that's kind of boring. We're not going to do that today. Or I guess we are going to do it, but we're going to do it in the context of doing one last draft. We're going to do one last FFPC high stakes draft today. You can still do them. So we're going to do one. We're on the clock right now. In fact, if you want to pull up that board, Earn Dog, and we're going to go through. I'm going to answer your questions. So get your questions in the chat. And I'm going to go through and look at this board and draft one last team. And we'll go through and talk about the week one matchups and all that. So let me find a way to get into this draft room and actually make this pick. Yeah. So far off the board, yes, we're going to take Nick Chubb here. That's who I like. We're taking only players I like here. And here's the beauty of FFPC is they let you draft today and tomorrow, right? Who cares if there's already been one game? And nothing really meaningful happened, to be honest. Like maybe we'll get a discount on Patrick Mahomes here. But to me, that's awesome. So if you want to draft one last team, go to myffpc.com, use promo code ALARM. They'll give you $25 when you deposit 35 or more, and you can get in these tournaments. This one I'm in here, I think it's the Fantasy Pros Challenge. It's like $350. You can get in high stakes games, draft one last team, and keep the fun going. Honestly, I know Howard Bender's out there in Vegas. He'll be covering the draft tomorrow. There's a ton of big drafts going. The big dogs are still doing it. So get in there, use promo code ALARM at myffpc.com and get it going. Keep the season alive. So Michelle asks, start Pitts or wait and see? Grab Schultz, Juwan Johnson, Everett, Okonkwo. I'm starting Kyle Pitts. And the thing is, with all these guys, like Gerald Everett, where is he on the team in terms of target share? To me, I have Keenan Allen ahead, Mike Williams ahead, Austin Eckler ahead. And even if Mike Williams or Keenan Allen gets hurt this year, both of them got hurt last year. Now they have Quentin Johnson. Gerald Everett just not interesting to me. And Juwan Johnson, to me, he's behind Olave. He's behind Michael Thomas. Pitts is a top 2 target on his team. And here's the thing. Because of his speed, because of his high ADOT, he led all tight ends last year in average depth of target. Because of that, he can do more with less. So if you give each of these guys 3, 4, 5 targets, Pitts is going to do more with it just because he's getting downfield. He can break tackles. He runs like a 4.2. Sorry, not a 4.2. He runs like a 4.5, 4.58 or so. So this guy's got speed, man. So get Pitts in there. Don't worry about anybody else right now. Chig Okonkwo, we like his athleticism. We like his ability to break tackles, break off chunk plays, very similar. But since they added DeAndre Hopkins, he goes in the back burner. We got O-Fakes in the chat. Aaron, what's up, baby? He says, a little help, have a team with Lamar Jackson at QB. Need to pick Michael Pittman, Terry McLaurin, or Zay Flowers stack. Honestly, I'm not starting Terry McLaurin, even if he plays. Turf toe is dangerous. And here's what I'm worried about with Terry McLaurin is they're playing the Cardinals. They're probably going to obliterate this team. They might win by double-digit touchdowns. And if Terry McLaurin is dealing with turf toe and they're just running all over him with Brian Robinson, why risk having this guy play 97% of the snaps, having him play a big snap share? So I'm just going to start Michael Pittman. That's a guy who last year led all wide receivers in snap share. I know it's a little risky with the rookie quarterback, but, I'm not too worried about it. I'm getting the guy in there. I'm going for upside. So far, for those just listening, here's a draft board so far. Christian McCaffrey went 1. It's surprising, I guess, but not really. He's the best running back. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill. Those are my top 4 right there. And I know I would talk about the context of this week. Tyreek Hill is an absolute smash play this week. I'm getting him in DFS lineups. I'm using him wherever I can because Jalen Waddle is a little banged up. This team uses a tight end in Durham Smythe and a fullback in Alec Ingold for monster snap shares when they don't soak up targets. And they're playing the Chargers, which should be a shootout game. I know he's going to have to deal with some Asante Samuel Jr., but I just don't see a world where this guy doesn't get 6, 7, 8, 9 targets, 10 targets even. So Tyreek Hill, I'm using him in DFS. Get him in there and probably should throw a Keenan Allen or Justin Herbert and just stack that game up with at least one lineup. Here in this draft, we see Amon-Ra St. Brown go 6. I mean, we got to see him yesterday. He looked great. You get the advantage if you draft today or tomorrow in these FFPC drafts, man. That's the trick. You can fade the Chiefs, you can draft the Lions. So hell, I'm in. So, I'm on Ross St. Brown. I don't think that's that crazy in a draft like this that's uh, full PPR. So I'm up next on the clock here. Just for those listening at home, the rest of the first round, Bijan Robinson. I took Nick Chubb. Someone still took Travis Kelce, even though he's banged up. Stephon Diggs went, and Saquon Barkley and AJ Brown. That's your first round. Nothing too crazy. This pick for me in this round is easy. I'm taking a guy that I've been taking everywhere, and I'm not going to stop now. Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams, it blows my mind, the people out there that say, "Oh, well, Jimmy G can't throw the ball deep, so Devontae Adams is going to struggle." No, that's not how it works with a guy like Devontae Adams. It's a super duper mega star. Not sure if you guys have seen his reception perception. They do a good job over there at tracking the kinds of routes that these guys run. When you look at his route tree, the slants and the outs and the deep balls, every route is green. Like this guy, there's not a route that this guy can't run. Whatever Jimmy G can throw, those are the routes Devontae Adams is going to be running. He's a focal point of the offense. The all offseason, all they've probably been doing is figuring out what routes Jimmy G can throw to Devontae Adams so that they can call those. They're not going to say, oh, well, Jimmy G doesn't do this well, so we're just not going to throw to Devontae Adams. That's not how it works. It's never how it works with the guys of this ability. So crazy to me that people were fading him here. Jack asked, "Do I grab Pollard if he's there?" Pollard was gone, and I'll recap this round when it's done. But I would have considered Pollard there. Pollard. There are 6 backs to me that I consider to be very safe. Austin Eckler, Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, Nick Chubb, Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard. In this particular format, Derrick Henry, great player, but this is full PPR, and it's also a tournament um, where the winner gets $1 million and you need higher upside guys for the format. That's the only thing with Derrick Henry for me. We got a question in the chat from Aaron. Different team weighted on QB, Cousins or Dak? I actually like Cousins. To be honest, I'm a little worried about Dak and these Cowboys because when you look at all the things that have been said, and I know coach speak is one thing, but not just said, but what they've done. I don't think they want to throw as much as they have in the past. Like, I think what this team wants to do, what Mike McCarthy said they want to do, is they want to slow it down. They want to run more. They want to give the defense time to rest, was his exact words. And those words came in the context of letting Kellen Moore leave. He basically said, "Hey, I was a young coordinator. I wanted to huck it, chuck it football at one point. I wanted to run the score up, but that's not how you win football games. You win football games by controlling the game, letting your defense rest, and setting yourself up to win." And they let Kellen Moore leave over that. That to me sounds like a team that really, honestly, doesn't want to be a top 5 team in pass attempts the way they have like 5 straight years. So I actually expect that team probably to throw the ball less than they have in the past. Now, that still gets determined by game script, but they also have a better defense. Than the defense is getting better every single year over there. So I think that team actually probably falls more towards middle of the pack. Whereas if you look at what the Vikings are doing, it's just back against the ropes over there. They're letting guys leave over money. Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook, half the defense. They're basically just clinging and trying to make it happen with weapons, right? They're just like, hey, you know what? Defense is what it is. Harrison Smith is getting old. Let's just load up with Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison, and let's just get after it. So for me, this is a team back against the ropes, just throwing punches like crazy, which is where Kirk Cousins does best. That guy digs himself a hole every game, and then he shoots his way out of it. And that's what I want for fantasy football. I don't care if they win or lose as long as they're chucking the ball. So I'm in on Kirk Cousins. I'm out to a certain degree on Dak. And I think honestly, at this point, the days of Dak Prescott scoring 6 rushing touchdowns like he did the first 2 years might be behind him to a certain degree, right? He's had the ankle, he's had multiple injuries. It feels unnecessary for guys like that. And all guys at that age at quarterback need to transition at some point. You need to keep that in mind for your dynasty teams. When you go through and you look at the quarterback position and the mobile QBs, there aren't many mobile QBs at age 30 or older that are really getting crazy. You know what I mean? They're still running for huge yards. You basically had Mike Vick, but he spent a couple years in jail, which crazy that you could say that kept the wear and tear off a little bit from an NFL standpoint. And then you had Cam Newton, who pretty much just was beaten to a pulp, but defied all odds by coming back and running for like 12 touchdowns for the Patriots in a year that they decided that they didn't like that and they moved on from it. So be careful. A quarterbacks they virtually all the Russian quarterbacks need to transition at some point into a Russell Wilson, white bread pocket type quarterback. Not necessarily. There's a difference between mobile and rushing, right? So rushing are these guys running for 800, 900 yards. Even Daniel Jones, I could classify as a rushing quarterback with 700 yards. Guys like Patrick Mahomes, that's mobile but not rushing. They're not doing designed run plays. He is going out of his way to slide. He'll slide short of the first down. He doesn't care. He knows how valuable he is. Guys like Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, guys that are capable of scrambling around for 250, 300 yards, but you're not going to run them off tackle. You know what I mean? You're not going to do a designed run play here. So for those listening, second round is in the books now. Derrick Henry, CeeDee Lamb, Tony Pollard, Garrett Wilson. I took Devontae Adams to pair with Nick Chubb, Chris Olave, Mark Andrews, Jalen Waddle, Calvin Ridley. That's a little early for Ridley, but I mean, I'm in on him. I probably would have gone Devonta Smith myself there, but why not with Ridley? And that's a guy. That's an interesting matchup this week with the Colts. Devonta Smith, Josh Jacobs, Travis Etienne. So for this week, when I look at that grouping of players, Garrett Wilson, I don't really love starting guys in that Monday night game. Obviously, I'm going to make a Monday night showdown slate because I'm sicko, but I don't really like starting guys in a game like that where there's some great corners in that game on both sides. So you got Trey White and you have obviously Sauce Gardner, which hurts Wilson, hurts Stephon Diggs, and then a guy like Dalton Kincaid, who I do like a lot. I don't love that he's going up against Matt Milano. Matt Milano and Jordan Poyer are very good at covering the tight end. If you go back and look at Bill's games, Matt Milano is a very injury-prone player, and the games he misses are the games where they're not good against the tight end, and the games where he plays, it's kind of a nightmare for the tight end. So I don't get discouraged if Dalton Kincaid doesn't have a good week this week, but if you have somebody else, start him. And that's why we go yin and yang tight end, right? Like Cole Kmet technically was tight end 8 last year, but he started the season with back-to-back zeros, right? Evan Ingram over the last 6 games was tight end like 4, but for the first few games there were some rough matchups. In one league, I did not draft a safe tight end. I went Evan Ingram and Cole Kmet, and I started Cole Kmet the first 2 weeks. He got zeros, and then I started Evan Ingram in the third week. He caught 1 pass for 9 yards. That's why we go yin and yang tight end instead of just super high risk. You're trying to survive the first couple weeks while you find the breakout. That's the whole game plan. And no, people think that the yin and yang tight end is a system where we want to keep 2 tight ends all year and play matchups and do that. That's not what we want to do at all. So we want to eventually drop one of those players. So here we go. I am on the clock, and I am going to Patrick Mahomes is there. Jahmyr Gibbs, Josh Allen. I'm going to play it safe here with Keenan Allen. And someone else is going to take Jahmyr Gibbs, and that's going to be a good pick. I think Jahmyr Gibbs looked great last night, but I also think that a lot of the things we were worried about came to fruition. I wrote about it in our article that we love Jahmyr Gibbs in Dynasty. We love what he represents, and we're not drafting him to ADP because David Montgomery is also a good player. And if you have 2 good running backs, why would you use just one, right? So on the flip side, what I saw yesterday, it honestly looked a lot like what we hoped the upside would be, which is 2017 Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara, right? Like this guy, Jahmyr Gibbs, if you watched him last night, the contact balance looked just like Alvin Kamara. Now, it's hard to say anybody is that good because Alvin Kamara is one of the best running backs I've ever watched, but the contact balance specifically, where some players, when there's contact, the play is pretty much over, and they're actually kind of looking for a way to end the play. Like some running backs, it's almost like they know the play's done as soon as they're in a certain spot. Whereas Jahmyr Gibbs was running as if the play was just getting started when the contact happened. Where Alvin Kamara, he lowers his shoulder and takes that contact, and he turns what would be a 5-yard run into 12 by going right through. And Jahmyr Gibbs, man, looked exactly like it. The way he's bouncing and spinning off of hits, the way he's running as if he's going to go right through a guy, or as if this is only the beginning. So I love seeing that, and I think he's going to have a great year. It's just, again, it's opportunity means a lot And that's why we're still drafting guys like Joe Mixon. I don't care what the metrics say as far as Mixon, blah, 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 not being, an amazing runner or whatever. Like, if he's the starting running back for Joe Burrow's offense, it does not matter. I watched LeGarrette Blount, who cannot catch to save his life, have 7 receptions in a season, but finishes an RB1 because he had 18 touchdowns because he was playing with Tom Brady. I don't care who the running back is for the Bengals. I'm drafting them. And since they didn't add anybody else, Joe Burrow's a slam dunk. We got a question in the chat. T Money reacts. I traded Kelsey and Lockett for Kittle and DJ Moore. Was that smart? Personally, I would have just kept Kelsey and Lockett. I'm worried about Kittle, man. Kittle's also banged up. He's got the adductor injury, and he was the 4th target on the team last year in when everyone was healthy. So it was Brandon Ayuk, Debo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, and then Kittle. So I'm a little worried about Kittle. DJ Moore has more upside than Lockett, but I probably still would have stuck with Kelsey and Lockett. That said, T Money, these injuries, man, they can linger. And if Kelsey doesn't come back soon or doesn't come back 100%, then it doesn't even matter. You won the trade. So I think that's pretty fair trade, but it's just not really what I would do myself. All right, so I'm back on the clock here. I'm looking at Najee Harris, Amari Cooper, or DJ Moore. This is a big question here, but I think I'm gonna take the running back. You start 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 2 flexes here. So you don't need to go crazy with wide receivers, but running back gets pretty thin. I would honestly love to draft 3 running backs early on, Najee and maybe also Miles Sanders if he ends up there. Here's what the 3rd round looked like for those listening and not watching the draft. If you want to watch it, go over to Fantasy Alarm YouTube and check it out there. If you want to actually draft yourself, you can still draft today and tomorrow. Go to myffpc.com, use promo code ALARM, and if you do that and you deposit $35 or more, they'll give you 25. Right now, I'm drafting in one of their high stakes. They still have the $2,000 main event, and also I think this is like some Fantasy Pros $350 buy-in where you win $1 million. So not $2,000, and I think they have a few other contests too. So get in there and draft. And I want to address real quick before I get to recap this 3rd round. People talking about the FFPC rules. There's been a little bit of a controversy going on in 2 respects. One is the fact you can still draft right now, which I don't think that's controversial at all because that was clear from the very start. So that's the big thing, is that if you don't like that, then don't draft a team in this format. Simple as that. Like, if you drafted your team in August and you're complaining now that I'm in the same tournament and I'm drafting it in September, well, you could have drafted your team in September. You can pick any draft slot you want, and it's clearly in the rules. So stuff I really don't want to hear complaints, honestly. So the other one is actually very similar. This one I think is a little more controversial. It's that Taysom Hill for FFPC, when the Saints changed his designation to, and Michelle, everybody, I'm going to get to your questions momentarily. But when the Saints changed his designation to quarterback, and they did it to manipulate the 3rd QB rule, no question about it. But when they changed his designation to quarterback, FFPC changes that designation from tight end to quarterback. And people complained about that. But here's the thing. It's in the rules. It's already in the rules that that's the case. And if they change the rules for this one player, right, then instead of now having one team that drafted Taysom Hill upset, you should have 11 teams upset that the rules got changed, right? So do you upset the one team because they didn't read the rules, or do you upset the 11 teams by changing the rules? Now, the reason it's controversial is I think it's a bad way to do it. The way they have it set up, I think, is bad. And I think that's where the guy from FFPC that has been going around and kind of doing some interviews and talking on Twitter, I think that's a mistake that he kind of made in the way he's handled this. Is he should have said, hey, for next year, we're going to evaluate the rules, and maybe we'll do it the way the rest of the industry does, where if you draft a guy, if you go into the draft, the positions stay what they are, right? That's what the rest of the industry does. If he said, hey, we're going to evaluate that for next year, but we can't change the rules this year, it would not be controversial. But instead, he kind of tried to really hard to defend the way it's set up. And I'm not sure if they should be defending that, just because I think they should just do it the way everyone else does it. As simple as that. But the easy response would have been, we can't change the rules now, so we're not going to. But for next year, we'll look at it. End of story. 3-minute interview. Done. 30-second interview. I just did it. There you go. That would have been an easier PR situation than what they've done. But I love FFPC. I love drafting on here. The rules are the rules, okay? So for this year, I'm just playing by the rules. I'm drafting a team on Friday after the Thursday night game because I can. Because I can, and it's going to give me an advantage, and you can too. So myffpc.com promo code alarm. They'll give you 25 if you deposit 35 or more. Here's what the last two rounds look like while I get off my soapbox on FFPC rules and Taysom Hill. Not to mention, people that know me know that I don't like Taysom Hill. I'm not drafting Taysom Hill anywhere. He makes my tight end rankings so annoying because how do I rank a quote unquote tight end Taysom Hill against everybody else when he got 13 targets last year on the entire season? He's not a tight end. The matchups don't affect him. Where and when he scores is completely random. It's just trying to rank him against uh, real tight ends it gives me an ice cream headache. So I hate him, and I just wish that his eligibility to me in every league should be flex, the way they treat DH in baseball. You can start him at the flex because he doesn't have a real position, or don't start him anywhere. End of story. All right, so third round for those just listening, Lamar Jackson, goes this way: T. Higgins, Cooper Kupp. So there goes Cooper Kupp. Darren Waller, Joe Mixon, T.J. Hawkinson, D.K. Metcalf, Jalen Hurts. I took Keenan Allen. So my team is now Nick Chubb, Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen. Then you got Patrick Mahomes, Debo Samuel, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. Coming back, you have Ramondre Stevenson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Aaron Jones, Christian Watson. I took Najee Harris. I now have two RBs, two wide receivers. Brees Hall, Amari Cooper, DJ Moore, Alexander Madison, Damian Pierce, Drake London, DeAndre Hopkins, and those are the first four rounds of this draft. I see some questions in the chat, so I'm going to hop on those real quick. Thank you guys for tuning in. Appreciate you guys hanging out. And how cool is that football is back, baby? Let's go. Let's get fired up, dude. Man, you should have seen me. My wife wasn't home yesterday. She took the kid with her, and I was in my house just walking around clapping, just like as if we were in the locker room, just by myself. I couldn't handle it, man. I couldn't contain myself. And that's just one game. Just wait till the Octo Box goes up on Sunday for Red Zone. I'm gonna take a bite out of my phone. I'm gonna throw my remote control through the window in the neighbor's yard. It's gonna be a big day, baby. Let's go. So got some questions here. Help. Musgrave, McBride, Henry, Odden were likely. Now I like the idea of holding Musgrave out of these guys. So if you have no other tight end and you have to start one, and the other option is to drop Musgrave, I don't want to drop Musgrave for any of these guys. Here's the problem I have with Musgrave this week, though. This might be the biggest tight end trap of the week besides Jake Ferguson, who I am not interested in Jake Ferguson at all, but that's another question. Luke Musgrave, man, everyone's going to be on him and starting him because they are missing the wide receivers. And the problem is the Bears were supposed to be missing Eddie Jackson, but apparently he's back from the ankle injury. He's 100%. Eddie Jackson's a huge problem for tight ends, man. People are thinking about, oh, there's no one to throw to, so this guy's going to be awesome, when they should be thinking about superstar safety Eddie Jackson will be covering rookie tight end Luke Musgrave. And that could be a recipe for disaster. Like Luke Musgrave could get 6 targets and catch one of them. Like it could be pretty ugly there. So if I had to start someone this week, I would probably start Trey McBride if Zach Ertz is out, or obviously Isaiah likely over all of them if Mark Andrews doesn't play. But if Ertz plays, or if you would have to drop Musgrave to pick up those guys, just start Musgrave. But be careful. It could get pretty scary in there. We got another one question here from Max. Flex and 2 wide receivers. He's got Terry McLaurin, Brian Robinson, Pittman, Sutton. I'm not starting Terry McLaurin. I'm terrified of the turf toe, and I'm honestly just terrified that game is going to be the Commanders running the football with Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson and winning easily, and then everybody gets on the bus. So Terry McLaurin is out for me. I'm going to start Cortland Sutton, and I'll probably start Brian Robinson against the Cardinals. That's pretty. What the heck? Oh. So yeah, that's where I'm at with that. Red Zone is not the worst, Dustin. Red Zone is the best television show of all time, number one. And if you just get 2 TVs, man, I put the Patriots on one TV and I put Red Zone on the other one. Right? You just have one game, whatever game is the best. So at 1:00, I'll have the Patriots game on. At 4:00, I'll be watching the Chargers play the Dolphins, and on the other TV, I'll have 8 hours of commercial-free football. It's the best thing there's ever been. So there we go. Am I dropping Romeo Dobbs? Oops, here we go. Just got a trade offer. PPR. I said Van Jefferson, get Christian Watson. What do you think? Don't need either this week. I would much rather have Christian Watson long term. I'm not worried. The short term injury isn't a problem. Van Jefferson is, to me, he's a great NFL player. And by that, what I mean is he can do everything. The dad is a coach. I'm gonna make my pick real quick, and then I'll finish up with this. And I'm taking all my guys here. So I'm gonna take Justin Herbert. I think Justin Herbert's gonna lead the league in passing yards this year. I mean, last year he was second, even with Dink and Dunk Joe Lombardi, and he had cracked ribs himself. This guy is going to absolutely cook. And the thing is, he's fairly athletic. Maybe Kellen Moore will have him run a little more. If you look at his athleticism on Player Profiler, I mean, he's more athletic than guys like Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence. Like he can scoot if given the opportunity. So I'm hoping maybe he does have like 200, 300 rushing yards on top of leading the entire league in passing yards. So Justin Herbert, slam dunk for me. But what I was saying about Van Jefferson, his dad is an NFL coach. He coaches for the Cardinals, right? Like this guy, he is incredibly polished, but and he does a lot of things really well. He can play split end, he can play slot, he can play flanker, he can chase down punts. He can do it all, but he doesn't really do anything great. That's the problem. He's like Gabe Davis. Gabe Davis is the perfect fourth wide receiver. Same with a guy like Zach Pascal, right? Like Zach Pascal is such a good guy to have on your football team because he can return punts, he can do everything. He's got decent size, and he can be backup to like five different guys. It saves you roster spots, but you don't want Van Jefferson being your wide receiver one, right? Because like when he goes against number one corners, he's not that good. So Van Jefferson to me, sure, he's fine in DFS. He's fine in deeper leagues, but like he's probably at this stage of the game not going to all of a sudden break out and be the next super megastar. Like he's not going to be a second round pick next year. Maybe he will, but I would be incredibly surprised. We want guys that are just like crazy talented, and it doesn't matter to me. We want guys like DK Metcalf that are just absolute freaks of nature. They're not interested in playing special teams whatsoever. They eat a bag of candy every day. It doesn't matter. Like those are the guys that I want on my team. Just absolute freaks. I don't want guys that are making the roster because they do their homework and they watch their film and they're just really good team players. Those guys, they don't win me $1 million in FFPC. So that's where I'm at. Trade for Christian Watson. He's the freakazoid. He's the raw talent, built like Randy Moss type guy. So that's what we want. So that's what's up, baby. GT Sports says, do I start Herbert or Hurts this Sunday? I'm starting Justin Herbert. Oh man, that's tough. The fact that you have two of the best QBs means that you should probably trade one of them. You just can't bench Jalen Hurts in any situation. Justin Herbert's probably like my QB4 this week going up against the Dolphins, but man, you can't bench Hurts because of the rushing upside, even against the Patriots. So trade somebody, man. Trade Herbert or Hurts. That's what I'm doing. Aaron Ross asks, am I dropping Romeo Dubs or my cuff Jerome Ford for starting tight end this week? Yeah, you have to drop somebody. Oh yeah. Who to drop? Yeah, I would just drop I would probably drop Jerome Ford. If you don't look at Jerome Ford as a guy that has standalone value and might crack your lineup at some point, then drop him. Don't just hold handcuffs. So, but if you do look at him as potentially being that kind of guy for you, then maybe you hold on to him. We're coming back up on the clock right now. Justin Fields. Well, I already just took Justin Herbert, so I'm not going to take Fields. We're looking at James Cook, George Pickens, Jahan Dotson, or the guy I'm probably going to take if he's there still is Miles Sanders. I love Miles Sanders. I would also take Alvin Kamara if he was there. So right now, Miles Sanders, easy pick for me. Let me give you guys a quick recap for those just listening and not watching the draft. So last round, Kenneth Walker, Joe Burrow, Deontay Johnson. Love Deontay Johnson this year. Don't really love him this week, and I'll talk about that in a second. Mike Williams, George Kittle, J.K. Dobbins, Dallas Goedert, Justin Herbert, Kyle Pitts, Rashad White, Brandon Ayuk, Chris Godwin. That's that round. I took Justin Herbert. When the next round is done, I'll recap that. I took Miles Sanders in that round already, though, for a little spoiler for you guys. Here's the situation with that Deontay Johnson is that this week, this matchup, we draft our players thinking about the full season and thinking about upside. But when it comes to starting your lineup, you have to think about the matchups. You have to think about the narrative, and you can't just only start guys in the order you drafted them. Start your studs is true. So far, we're through 5 rounds. The first 4 rounds of this draft, I'm starting no matter what, right? Like, those guys, they're just matchup. Justin Jefferson's never gonna have a matchup that makes me not start him, right? But after you get to the wide receiver 3s and 4s, sometimes even your wide receiver 2, and certainly for RBs and tight ends, the matchups do matter, right? In my biggest league, I've mentioned this on the show, my first quarterback I drafted was Anthony Richardson. The first tight end I drafted was Dalton Kincaid, and I'm not starting either this week. I also drafted Jared Goff and Sam Laporta. I started both of them. Laporta got me 5 receptions. I'm happy with that. So sometimes you got to look at the matchups. I look at this game, this Steelers at 49ers game. This is going to be a great football game because there's 2 very good defenses involved. But the over under for that game is like 40 and a half points. 40 and a half points, man. Do you know what the over under for the Cardinals Washington game is? The worst game on the slate? 39. 39. They're saying that this game is going to have probably be one of the lowest scoring games of the week based on the over under. And if you go to fantasyalarm.com and go to NFL tools and then go to Vegas, the Vegas tab, that shows you not only the over unders for the week, but it shows you the implied point total, right? So for instance, the Chiefs in a 54-point over/under game where they were favored to win, the implied point total was 28. Now they didn't get there, but that means that that's a huge number. I mean, if Travis Kelce was healthy, everyone would have expected them to score 28 points. In this Steelers 49ers game, with a 40-point over/under and the Steelers being underdogs, that implied line is like 19 points. They're not even expecting this team to score 3 touchdowns. So in a game, and honestly, on the other side, it's only like 21 or 22 for the 49ers. So this is a game where you have, you know, Christian McCaffrey, Najee Harris, George Kittle, Pat Fryermuth, Brandon Ayuk, Debo Samuel, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, all these guys that people are banking on in a game that's probably not gonna be very high scoring. So I'm trying to avoid guys, if possible, from that game. I'm gonna start Najee in this league because, you start a million guys in this, but certain guys like George Pickens, if you have somebody else who can start with George Pickens, I would. And Albert says in the chat, Brandon Ayuk or Jahan Dotson in this game. Now, Dustin says Terry McLaurin's off the injury report for week 1, but I don't know, man. That turf toe always scares me a little bit. And if that's going to be a game that's going to be a blowout, then as it's supposed to be, or the Commanders are supposed to win, then I don't know why they would run Terry McLaurin out for a massive snap share. Maybe he is fully 100% healthy, but I'm just not quite sure that's what I want. I think even then, with Brandon Ayuk versus John Dotson, we don't know what Dotson is yet. Like, we love the upside, so I think I'm still starting Brandon Ayuk, but like, again, that's a good example of somebody in a tough spot where we love Brandon Ayuk and Jahan Dotson for the season long, and we love the upside, but this particular week, maybe not an amazing spot for either one. Like, you have to start one in your lineup. I'll start Ayuk, but I'm not putting those guys in DFS lineups right now. Just not in those low scoring games. I want shootout games. I want guys playing in the Browns Bengals game. I want guys playing in the Chargers Dolphins game. That's what I'm looking for, baby. I'm trying to go big time up in here. I like, starting Dotson and hoping he scores one of the 2 touchdowns in that game. That's a little scary. And Sam Howell, kind of rough. And Dustin, I fully agree with you in the chat. Can we rename it? Turf toe doesn't sound serious or scary. It really doesn't. It should be more like toe ruined, right? Same with like a Liz Frank. Liz Frank sounds like a nice lady. Like, it sounds like somebody that works at the library. Whereas Liz Frank is just like a horrible injury to your foot. So we got to change a lot of these names. Also, they should probably swap the names of murder and manslaughter, because manslaughter sounds way worse than murder, doesn't it? Like, manslaughter is pretty rough, dude. So anyway, I digress. Rename all that stuff. Also, I mentioned this on Twitter, but football in general needs more synonyms or acronyms or even just different words. Why is tackle the word for like 7 different things? Offensive tackle, defensive tackle, the tackle tackles the guy. It's confusing the hell out of my wife. Like, let's clarify the words, okay? And also, I'd be fine if they just made everything offsides, encroachment, all that. I know that there's different rulings for it. We have to have offsides and encroachment and neutral zone infraction and unabated to the quarterback, and they all mean different things. But it's just a nightmare trying to explain to people that, and I'm sick of doing it. Anyway, the the sixth round now done. We had Tyler Lockett, Javonte Williams, Christian Kirk, Terry McLaurin. I took Miles Sanders, super mega star Miles Sanders. They basically came out. There's a clip of Scott Fitterer, the GM, saying, "Remember when you caught 50 passes? We love that. That's what we want you to do here. That's what we signed you. That's why we made you the highest paid free agent running back. Like that's the plan over there." Frank Reich loves dialing up screens to the running backs. Last time Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines were healthy, he dialed up 40 to the running backs, and Nick Sirianni doesn't. He dialed up 19 screens to Dallas Goedert alone. Boston Scott had 3. Miles Sanders had 3. The entire running back group combined had 9. Doug Peterson with these same running backs, they had 39, right? Miles Sanders had 19 the last time Doug Peterson was calling the plays. It's a matter of play calling. It's a matter of getting away from Jalen Hurts, the mobile QB. So I'm in on Miles Sanders. The rest of this round, James Cook, Justin Fields, George Pickens, David Montgomery. Now, David Montgomery going a little earlier than you would expect after a great performance yesterday. That's part of the value of drafting in this Friday and Saturday draft, right? The last rounds that you could do this. Trevor Lawrence went, Jonathan Taylor went, DeAndre Swift went. DeAndre Swift, that's a little early for me. The same issues that Miles Sanders had last year, DeAndre Swift and all those boys are going to run into this year. Nick Sirianni does not like throwing screens. Jalen Hurts does not like dumping it down to the running back. Jalen Hurts likes taking it himself. The Eagles are dead last in pass attempts to the running back last year. The Jalen Hurts had the second most goal line rushes of any player behind only Jamal Williams. It's just a bad. People love the line and they think about the RPO. That's great for yards per carry, but yards per carry doesn't do a damn thing for me in fantasy football. Running for 6 yards a carry and having 70, 80 rushing yards with no receptions and no touchdowns is a bad week in fantasy football for me. I don't play standard, so if that sounds good to you, then jump on that. But I'm out. GT Sports got a question in the chat. Start 2 RBs: Kenneth Walker, Antonio Gibson, Rashad White, or Zach Charbonnet. Thanks again. Well, let's keep an eye on Kenneth Walker. He just showed up on the injury point, bit of a groin situation. So if Walker's out, I'm starting Charbonnet no matter what. Otherwise, I'm probably starting Rashad and Antonio Gibson. Both running backs in that Chargers game are probably going to – sorry, not the Chargers game. Both running backs in the Washington and Arizona game are probably going to do well there. And so I'm interested. If Walker and Charbonnet both play, I don't know if I want to start either of those guys. I'll probably just start Gibbs and White. If I would start Walker if someone could promise me he was fully healthy, but I'm not sure they can do that, I'm on the clock here. Best available: Evan Ingram, Isaiah Pacheco, Mike Evans, Pat Freiermuth, Dalvin Cook, Zay Flowers, Michael Pittman. I'm going here with I think I'm going to go down. Now I'm going to grab Mike Evans. The Mike Evans hate has gone a little too far. And I know people don't love Baker Mayfield, but they forget that Baker Mayfield is still probably going to be better than a lot of these young QBs, man. Like Baker Mayfield right now, we don't know if Kenny Pickett's better than Baker Mayfield. We don't know for sure. We think that long term, Kenny Pickett has that upside, and we think that even this year he could be better, but we don't know that. The rookie QBs like CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, Baker Mayfield's probably better at playing football right now than those guys. I mean, Big Ben was old and he was tired of playing and he was done playing, but Big Ben was a better quarterback than Kenny Pickett. Big Ben probably right this moment is still a better quarterback than Kenny Pickett. Eli Manning in his last couple of years was better than Daniel Jones has been the last couple of years. You got to keep that in mind that this game is hard. So, right, I mean, hell, as crazy as it sounds, Baker Mayfield might be just as good as guys like Brock Purdy. The team's not as good, but if you put Baker Mayfield on that 49ers team with Trent Williams and Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel, then we're probably looking at him a little differently. So I think Baker Mayfield is capable of getting the ball to Mike Evans. He's had 1,000 yards every single year of his career. So for me, give me Mike Evans, dude. Looking at this team right now, I have Justin Herbert's my starting quarterback. My starting 2 wide receivers are Devontae Adams and Keenan Allen. And Keenan Allen paired with Justin Herbert. Yeah, buddy. My starting running backs are Nick Chubb and Najee Harris. And my 2 flex players are Miles Sanders and Mike Evans. Like, that's what I'm rolling out this week. Unless I get somebody next round or the round after that just has a crazy good matchup. I don't see why I wouldn't just start all those monsters. Like that team is I'm getting the guys that I really like. The only player that I didn't get that I didn't really have a chance to get is Joe Mixon. He went early in the third, didn't really have a chance, but that's a guy I really like. I'm getting a lot of the players. If I could somehow replace Najee Harris with Joe Mixon, this would be like one of my favorite teams. So the last round is done. The run where I took Mike Evans, Jerry Judy, Cam Akers, Alvin Kamara, James Conner, Jahan Dotson, Jordan Addison, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Mike Evans, Isaiah Pacheco, Deshaun Watson, Gabe Davis, Michael Pittman. That's how the last round went. And I'll tell you, Alvin Kamara, in something like this, it's crazy to me that a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs would go so early and Alvin Kamara would go in round 7. So Gibbs went in round at like the 3-4 swing, and Kamara went this far. You can't start Gibbs in this week because he already played. So you're basically just getting 2 extra games of Gibbs versus Kamara. And we were saying to ourselves, "Oh, maybe Jahmyr Gibbs can be Alvin Kamara. Like, I'll just take Alvin Kamara, and I'll just wait a couple weeks. It's not that long to wait." So yeah, kind of an easy pick for me. This one I'm torn on because I like Cortland Sutton. That's Howard Bender's guy, but I really love Mike. I really want to plant the Michael Thomas flag. So that's who I'm going to take here. I think Michael Thomas is going to be back, baby. He's been looking great in practice. Just the other day in 7-on-7s and 11-on-11s, he caught 10 balls. So clearly he's healthy if in practice in full speed drills, full speed 7-on-7, which is basically you just take the lineman out of the equation, and then 11-on-11s, which is obviously just a full game situation. To catch 10 balls in a situation like that, this guy's back, man. And he's saying it himself. All the beat writers are saying it. To see the confidence out of him, to suggest if he was timid about it or if he, wasn't fully healthy, then maybe we'd shy away. But if this guy's back, last year in 3 games, he was on pace for 90 receptions, which would have been top 10, tied with DK Metcalf, and he scored 3 touchdowns. Now, I'm not going to say he was on pace for 17 touchdowns because that's dumb, but this guy looked like Michael Thomas last year, and that was playing with like Jameis Winston. Now he gets to play with Derek Carr. Michael Thomas might just be Michael Thomas, and Michael Thomas is awesome. So that's why I'm doing one last draft here. Hell, I might do another one tomorrow. If you sat there last night and watched that game and you said to yourself, man, I wish I had Jahmyr Gibbs. I wish I had David Montgomery. I wish I had more of these players. You're going to feel that a million times on Sunday. So go over to FFPC.com, use promo code ALARM, deposit $35 or more. They'll give you 25, and then you can draft another team in this tournament, in the other tournament. The main event is still open, the $2,000 one. This is the Fantasy Pros one. I think it's like $350. Just get in, draft one last team, and just get your guys. Like that's what I'm doing here. In all offseason long and best balls and all that. Maybe I would have taken Cortland Sutton here. This is my last draft. This will be my last most meaningful draft. I'm gonna get my boys. I'm getting my dudes, Mike Evans, Michael Thomas. Let's go, dude. Let's run it back. So if you want to run one last one today and tomorrow, myffpc.com, promo code ALARM. They'll give you $25 if you deposit 35 or more. Pretty good deal. Dustin in the chat saying thoughts on Hayden Hurst this weekend with Chark and Thielen questionable. Honestly, my thoughts on Hayden Hurst have always been why not? In the early rounds of drafts with tight end, we want certainty. We want to know for sure that this guy is a stud when healthy. Now, health we can't predict. Travis Kelce getting hurt, George Kittle getting hurt, Mark Andrews getting hurt. I just want to say everybody was telling me that Darren Waller was supposed to get hurt, and it looks like Darren Waller is the one guy that isn't hurt. Oh, funny how that happens, right? So with early picks, you want certainty. With later picks, we lean into uncertainty. Last year with the Jaguars, we said, okay, it's a brand new coach, Doug Peterson, calling brand new plays. Trevor Lawrence has never played with Christian Kirk before. He has never played with Zay Jones before. He has never played with Evan Ingram before. Marvin Jones is getting kind of old. Who gets the ball? We don't know. If the ball is distributed fairly evenly, which it kind of was, though, one of those players is tight end eligible. You get that scarcity. And in this format, FFPC, you get tight end premium. So I look at it and I say, hey, if we don't know if it's going to be Chark, if it's going to be Thielen, if it's going to be Mingo, if it's going to be Terrace Marshall, it's a new quarterback. They went out and got all new weapons. The running back's new, the tight end's new, all 3 wide receivers are new. Why not take Hayden Hurst, right? I'm taking him super late in drafts all over the place. I've got him in my DFS article over on Fantasy Alarm. That's for Fantasy Alarm members only, but that's a free pick from behind the paywall, dude. From out in Moneyland, where we made millionaire Mike last year, a Fantasy Alarm member. He made himself a millionaire by being a Fantasy Alarm member, using our tools, using our advice to create his lineup and win $1 million and buy a boat. He was sending pictures in the Discord of the boat he bought with the DFS advice. And we do it differently over at Fantasy Alarm than some other places. Other places, you got one guy and he puts in like a lineup or a couple players he likes, and that's it. At Fantasy Alarm, we take it so seriously that I make my own lineups. But when I do my research for our members, I'm focused, laser focused on tight end. I rate just the tight end article and I focus on the position and I look at DraftKings, I look at Yahoo, I look at FanDuel, I compare the prices and tell you, Hawkins, let's say I like Hayden Hurst this week on FanDuel and DraftKings. He's like 7% of your budget, but on Yahoo, he's like 9%. So you start him here. We tell you who to play and also where to build the lineups, right? So I do tight end, and I give you guys at each level, elite, mid, tier, guys to fade. Like we're fading Dallas Goedert this week. He's going up against Kyle Duggar. It's not a good matchup. So we give you guys to fade, guys to pick, and I do just tight end, and I spend all week thinking about that. And John and Pemba does that with quarterback. And we have guys at each position doing that and giving you the best at each position so that you can kind of create a Voltron of all these, the amount of research that I do spending all week on just tight end. You can take that and pick your tight end, and then someone else is doing that much research on QB, and that can help you pick your QB. So we take that incredibly seriously over at Fantasy Alarm. Get set up now. Our annual membership right now is 40% off. So you go over there, and what it would cost you just to have the football season, you get a full year. And that includes baseball, basketball, hockey, NASCAR. We have the best NASCAR writer in the industry. He's the 3-time FSWA writer of the year for NASCAR, Matthew Sells. Follow him on Twitter. This guy, his spreadsheet it boggles my mind. He showed me it before, and I thought I was staring into the matrix, dude. I thought I was going to throw up. Like this guy crushes NASCAR. It's amazing. So make sure you get up in there and check that out. But Dustin, to answer your question, Hayden Hurst, yeah, we're taking stabs. And if he blocks a ton or he doesn't do anything, we just drop him because he's pretty much free. And speaking of lining up perfectly for this draft, if you go by best available player, number 1 is AJ Dillon. Number 2, another mega flag plant of mine, Dalton Kincaid. So I'm taking him. It's crazy. It's like this. They're rolling out the red carpet for me in this draft. They just want me to get my guys. They want me to get my team. They saw the name Fiasco at the top, and they said, out the way. Make way for this guy. He's winning $1 million. And when we win $1 million, guess what we're going to do? Exactly what we're doing right now. Because this is my favorite thing in the world. Fantasy football and football in general is my favorite goddamn thing. If you gave me $1 gazillion, I would still be sitting here right now drafting a team and talking to you guys about Hayden Hurst. So if I win $1 million, it just goes into, a Roth IRA. Well, I can't put it in a Roth IRA because it's, deposit limits and all that, but I'll put it in some accounts and it will just be, I'll buy a gas station ground lease that pays out 5% cap rate and, just make $100,000 a year on that. And I'll just play fantasy football all the time. That's what I'll do. So love you guys. Glad you're here with me. Glad we're doing football. This is the best thing in the world. And you can still draft. Go to myffpc.com, use promo code alarm. But enough promo codes. Enough of that. Let me recap the last 2 rounds for you guys. And I got to take a sip of this tasty apple juice because I've been talking straight for 45 minutes. We got Khalil Herbert, Zay Flowers, David Njoku, Marquise Brown, Michael Thomas to my team, amazing pick. Evan Ingram to another team, not a bad pick, pretty safe but kind of boring this year. Sky Moore, Brian Robinson, Pat Fryermuth, Dalvin Cook, Antonio Gibson, Jacoby Myers. That round, a lot of boring picks there except for mine. And also David Njoku is a good pick. David Njoku is another player I love this week, going up against the shootout with the Bengals. And they lost both their starting safeties, Jesse Bates and Von Bell, the 2 players that played the most snaps for that defense last year. David Njoku, that's another one from behind the paywall. Heck, it's week 1. I'm going to give you another one. David Njoku on DraftKings, $4,200. Get him in lineups right now. Everyone's going to be starting Tyler Higbee, and that's a fine start. But Tyler Higbee's pretty boring, and he doesn't really create for himself. And he's not going to, break off like a 60-yard touchdown the way David Njoku could down the seam with the changes to that Bengals defense. So Njoku, get him in there. He's cheaper than Higbee. Higbee is fine. Higbee is a good cash game play if you just want to pick the safest, most boring player there's ever been. Next round, round 9, Tua Tagovailoa, Treylon Burks, Brandon Cooks, Kirk Cousins, Raheem Mostert, who I love, Zach Charbonnet, Cortland Sutton. I took Dalton Kincaid, who is going to be a stud, Jamal Williams, AJ Dillon, Samaje Perine, Elijah Moore. And that brings us to this round where I am on the clock momentarily. And guess what? I built such a balanced roster where I literally right now, every player I've picked, I can start. Michael Thomas is my first guy on the bench as my wide receiver 4. So right here, I have 3 running backs, I have 4 wide receivers, I have my quarterback, I have my tight end. I can take whoever the hell I want. Number 1 in the queue is Kadarius Toney. My God, has anyone ever had a worse football game than Kadarius Toney did yesterday? He had 1 receiving yard and -1 rushing yards for a grand total of no yards. He had like 6 drops, including one that led to a pick 6 in a game where they lost by 1. My good gravy, Kadarius Toney. I don't even think he's that bad. Anyone's capable of having one bad game, but that was like the Super Bowl of really bad games. That was pretty rough there. So I'm gonna clock here. The guys that my guys would be the safe pick in Juju, or the upside pick in Rashad Bateman, and I think I'm gonna go with Bateman here. Just knowing that this team, they're going to open it up. Todd Monken, Air Raid, and Earn Dog. Can you scroll the board down for us there? Aaron just pointed out that they can't see past round 6. And to answer Angie's question, sorry about that, Angie. I would start Drake London over Rashad White. I just I don't I like Rashad White, but the upside for Drake London is just tremendous in the situation he's in. And let's take that comment down as well, Earn Dog, so that the board isn't like a little tiny P on the screen. I'm also reading the picks out loud for those listening at home. Sorry if you're having a hard time, you can go and watch the draft, or I'm going to put the draft board in the comments so you can just see who I like and where we're at. But yeah, that's I'm starting Drake London out of that crew. But yeah, Rashad Bateman, man, with this offense, the Todd Monken air raid, they already committed to using 3 wide receivers. In fact, they took Patrick Ricard, and instead of trading the fullback because they don't use one, they're basically having him work out with a lineman. Patrick Ricard quietly actually played a ton of snaps at inline tight end. It doesn't look like that because it's the fullback, and you just think, oh, the fullback is going over there. But when he goes and lines up next to the tackle, he's basically playing tight end. I think you're going to see a Nick Boyle-esque role out of Patrick Ricard this year, which is going to allow them to have either 3 wide receivers or 2 wide receivers and Mark Andrews and Patrick Ricard doing his thing. Or Patrick Ricard's probably not going to play all that much compared to previous years. But we're going to see a lot more 3 wide receiver sets. And Rashad Bateman, honestly, if he's healthy, I know he's got the foot situation, but he's on my bench here. And if he's healthy, this guy, he's looked like Jalen Waddle at times, flying around. He's a first-round pick. He can break off monster plays. Don't be surprised if Rashad Bateman's awesome. That's all I'm saying. And, Zay Flowers, we like him too. Odell Beckham Jr., worth a stab too. That's why it's a risky pick, but we're talking about round 10. He's the second player on my bench. So with this build, I know we got to jump off momentarily. Make sure you're hanging out after this for Brit's Blitz. Love that show. Brit might be the most plugged in fantasy gamer out there. She does our injury reports and all our battles, like the camp battles and stuff. And when you talk about like Alec Pierce versus Josh Downs, she's crazy plugged in on that stuff, up to date on everything. Injuries, contractually obligated to be. So make sure you tune in for her show right after this, because she will give you the up to the minute updates on all the stuff going on, all the news, and she's just a lot of fun, honestly. So make sure you hang tight for that. Jack asked, do I like Josh Palmer later in this draft to pair with Herbert? No, not really. The problem that I have with Josh Palmer is that guys like that, they have such a short window to wow everyone, right? And as a 3rd round pick, he actually had the golden opportunity last year. With Keenan Allen got hurt and Mike Williams got hurt, he looked fine, but that would have been the chance. Even honestly, before the season, was their chance to say Josh Palmer is the guy and not pay Mike Williams. Instead, they paid Mike Williams and they extended Keenan Allen, and then they went out and drafted Quentin Johnston in the 1st round. that kind of is a nail in the coffin for Josh Palmer for me, Jack. If I'm going to draft anybody, I mean, I'm probably just not this team. The top targets on the squad are uh, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler, and then Quentin Johnston and Gerald Everett are battling for a meaningless target share, in my opinion. I don't want Gerald Everett, I don't want Quentin Johnston, and I don't want Josh Palmer. And sorry, Toronto Dave. Shout out to the Toronto area, but that's not moving the needle for me. That Josh Palmer's from the greater Toronto area. But I do love you and I love the Toronto area. So that I mean, I'll move him up one spot in my rankings from like wide receiver 190 to 189 for you, Toronto. For you, buddy. I'm back on the clock here coming up. Last round was Dak Prescott, great value on him. Sam Laporta, again, great value on him, but you can't start him this week. So that team still needs to draft their starting tight end for this week. Tyler Higbee, Jalen Warren. I took Rashad Bateman because I'm amazing at this. Nico Collins went next. That guy next to me is actually pretty good too. He got Cortland Sutton and Nico Collins. I like what this guy's. I like the way he thinks. Uh, Tank Bigsby, Quentin Johnston went. Alan Lazard, Dalton Schultz, Chiga Okonkwo, Rashad Penny, and one pick before me. The guy that I just said was awesome. The guy with Sutton and Nico Collins. The guy I said I like how he thinks. He took my guy Rashi Rice. So even though I love the way he thinks, but I'm actually very annoyed with him. But it lets me take. I probably should take a running back, but I'm not going. Yeah, I'm going to. I'm going to take Kenneth Gainwell here, a guy that you know he's going to be the starting running back for this team, but I don't like the situation. I mentioned earlier. I'm not going to recap the whole thing with the rushing quarterback and all that, but in this round, I just need guys that I can throw into a spot during a bye week or based on injuries. I'm going to be starting there's two running back spots where I'm going to have Nick Chubb and Najee Harris virtually every week. I also have Miles Sanders, who's going to be in a flex, and he's obviously my next man up in the RB spot. I just needed somebody that I can trust for a week. And the team after me, the Godfather, took Jerick McKinnon. Man, Jerick McKinnon, he caught one pass for 10 yards last night, and then he just disappeared, dude. I don't know what the heck is going on with that, but um, kind of crazy, not ideal. So let me. I drafted the bulk of this team. We got to jump, but here's what the squad is. So my starting quarterback, Justin Herbert, awesome. My starting running backs, Nick Chubb, Najee Harris, Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell, great. Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen in my two spots, locked in there for the whole year. Mike Evans and Michael Thomas, Upside City, both older guys, but easily capable of 1,000+ yards. It's all I need from my wide receivers 3 and 4. Then I went big time upside with Rashad Bateman and last pick, Kenneth Gainwell. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. We're going to jump out here. Make sure you're set up with Fantasy Alarm. Go to my FFPC where you can still draft. And most importantly, stay tuned on this network for Brits Blitz next, one of my favorite shows. Adios, amigos. Have fun this weekend. Football's back, baby. You!